Hi everyone, my name is Farley, and I'm the lead developer on our upcoming D30 project. As part of a developer series, I wanted to hop on today and give you a bit of insight as to what we've been working on recently. During this episode specifically, we'll be exploring the D30's FMS and some of the things that make it unique in comparison to other aircraft. It's important to note that everything you see here is still a work in progress. Anything is subject to change, and there are kinks which will be ironed out between now and release. Without further delay, let's get into the FMS. As many of you may know, an aircraft flight management system is an essential component in managing navigation, communications, and performance. Let's head into the cockpit and do some exploration. There are tons of systems and functions in the cockpit, but what we'll be mainly focusing on is the FMS interface, otherwise known as the CNI-MU. Don't worry guys, we'll have another future episode of the Dev Diaries going over all the other details in this cockpit model. Every modern plane, at least the large ones, are going to have some sort of interface similar to this CNI-MU, and this is where all the FMS controls are. Note that every manufacturer uses different nomenclature for this unit, but in the C-130 it's called the CNI-MU, which stands for Communications, Navigations, and Identification Management Unit. As we can see, this interface is separated into three sections. There are three different types of keys. One is the soft keys, which will help to enter and configure different prompts depending on what page you're on. Then we have the hard keys, which change the actual page, what part of the system you're configuring. And finally, we have the alphanumeric keys, which are how we enter specific information into the scratch pad and into the system. As you can see here, there are actually two separate interfaces in the cockpit, which are both interfaces to the same system. This, of course, is done to pull up, if needed, two different screens of differing information at the same time, and this would be the pilot's screen and the right-hand one would be the co-pilot screen. So let's go through what each of the hard key buttons do. So starting things off, we have the COM tune button. One of the primary functions of the CNI-MU is controlling radio communication, whether it be COM radios or navigation radios. With these COM radios, we have three different types of frequencies. We have the UHF radios, which are used for the primary communication with other military units. We have the two VHF radios, which are used primarily for communication with civilian air traffic control. And we have the HF communication radios. Those are the high frequency communication radios. They're special because they can communicate beyond line of sight. So, for example, during oceanic crossings. Following this, we have the nav tune button, which helps you to tune your navigation radios. So you have two VORs, two TACANs, which essentially is the military version of the VOR, and we have the two ADFs. Next up, we have the IFF button, also known as Identification Friend or Foe. This is equivalent to the civilian transponder. Essentially, the transponder is a subset of the IFF. So this helps to report your altitude and identify other aircraft, vehicles, or forces, and to helps with signaling traffic advisories and avoiding collisions. This was first developed in the Second World War, and the military has continuously updated and improved its function. Here we have the nav control button. This is how the aircraft knows where it is. So, because the D30 is a military aircraft, it's designed to operate with high precision in areas without the GPS. So this solution control is actually pretty complex. It allows you to pinpoint where you are based on your original starting point, how much distance you've moved since your initial departure. We're talking there, of course, about the INS. And it's supplemented by GPS, also by the navigation radios. This is equivalent pretty much to what you would find in any airliner, with the exception that the controls to actually update your INS solution are quite a bit more complicated. So there are many different ways to update your INS position in the absence of any other fixed source. And that involves the cursor control and other unique things. And we'll probably or may at some point do another video just specifically on that, because it's pretty interesting. The next hard key is the mission control button. This is not to be confused with the mission computer menu, which interfaces with the aircraft's various systems, but we'll get to that later. The mission function is something you would not find in a typical airliner or civilian aircraft. This has all the special military stuff that I'm sure you're excited to explore. Just as a few examples, we can set up search and rescue missions, we can set up rendezvous to intercept with moving targets, a tanker, for example, and we can set up jump runs or cargo drop runs. We also have the time nav, which will allow us to set a speed to arrive at a specific time at our target. One thing that's unique to the D30's FMS is the LZ function. This allows you to define your own GPS approach for any point on the globe, as long as you have the coordinates or a reference database object and can program in your approach type. That's very interesting and is something that you'll not find in other aircraft. We have the direct intercept button. This just allows you to go direct to a waypoint, similar to what you would find in any aircraft. It's the deer button, essentially. Now we have the told button. The told button is how you calculate your aircraft performance. You enter in your weight, etc., and it'll give you your V speeds, your landing data, your takeoff data. What's interesting to note is that this is part of the mission computer and not part of the navigation computer. And those computers are completely separate and don't talk to each other. As such, any data that you input here is not going to autofill to the navigation computer, which is somewhat annoying, but is just part of how this aircraft works. We also have, of course, the index, which is just an index of everything in the computer. And then we have the mission computer index. The mission computer integrates directly with the D30's internal computer and allows you to take control of the system with software inputs in situations involving hardware failures. This is going to be essential in dealing with various aircraft failures. So for example, let's say if your lighting panel fails up on the overhead, then you can head into here, go to external lights, say, and if we turn on this soft panel, now we have control over all our external lights directly from software here. Next, we have the caps button. That's unfortunately in our system right now, but we are working on that. It'll allow you to fly in formations with D30's or other aircraft in the sim. We plan for this to work in single player with AI or in multiplayer with other simmers. The legs button is the legs button, same as you would find in any FMS. This just gives you your current navigation, where you are in your current flight plan. And we have our mark button. This is another military system that allows you to just mark a specific position. So this is my home airport here, where I am right now, and we've now saved this position. This could be part of a search and rescue operation or just a point of interest. So that's it for all the essentials of the CNI-MU and FMS within the D30. I was asked what's something that I'm super proud of that was implemented in the D30, and I've got to say the cursor system. That is a cursor which works across all the different MFDs and the HUDs. Unfortunately, that hasn't quite been implemented, hasn't made the port to MSFS, but stay tuned because we will probably do another episode exploring that. We've poured tons of hours into making sure we've nailed the D30's FMS, including visits to Air Force installations and walkthroughs with experienced pilots and instructor pilots, and I can't wait to showcase more as we get closer to release. That's it from me, guys. Stay tuned for more episodes and have a lovely day.